Nobody knows your name. That's the point. You don't have a business card. You don't have a LinkedIn profile. You don't show up in any org chart, any shareholder filing, any government database that a journalist could pull at 2 in the morning when they're desperate and close to something they shouldn't be close to. You are, by every measurable standard, a ghost, and you made yourself that way on purpose because the man you work for requires it, because the system you protect demands it, because the moment you become visible, you become a liability, and liabilities in this world get quietly resolved. It's 6:14 in the morning when your phone buzzes, not your personal phone, the other one, the one with no case, no name saved in the contacts, no history that survives longer than 24 hours, one message, 4 words, Amsterdam. Today, clean it. You're already out of bed before you finish reading. You didn't always live like this. There was a version of you, maybe 8 years ago, who had an apartment with furniture he'd chosen himself, who went to dinner parties, who had a girlfriend who asked where he was going when he left in the middle of the night. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. You're not sure when exactly he disappeared. It happened gradually, then completely, the way all transformations do when you're too busy surviving them to notice. You met Marcus Vale 3 weeks into your job at a private security consultancy in London. He was the man who walked into the room after the meeting ended and looked at you like he was reading something written on the inside of your skull. He asked you one question. Not about your resume, not about your background clearance or your language skills or your time in the 75th Ranger Regiment before that. He asked, "How comfortable are you with ambiguity?" You told him very. He smiled like you'd just passed the only test that mattered. 3 months later, you were living in a service department in Zurich with a new identity layer, a new set of travel documents, and a salary that made your previous life feel like a bad joke. You didn't have a title. You asked once early on what you should call yourself. If anyone ever asked, tell them you're in asset management. That's all you ever need to say. You manage assets. The difference is that the assets are information, influence, loyalty, silence, and occasionally people, and the portfolio is worth somewhere north of $43 billion, depending on which market is open and what Marcus decided to move before breakfast. Amsterdam is gray and cold. When your car pulls off the A10, you've been here 4 times in the past 18 months, always for different reasons, always under a different travel name. The city doesn't know you any more than you want it to. You like places that move fast enough not to stare. The problem is a man named Hendrik Bloom. He's a mid-level compliance officer at a private bank. Hendrik has been doing his job correctly, which is the problem. He found something he wasn't supposed to find, a series of layered transfers that look, to a trained eye with enough time and curiosity, like the skeleton of something that shouldn't exist on paper. Hendrik sent an internal query 2 days ago. The query was flagged. The flag reached a man who works 2 levels below you. That man called you. You're not here to hurt Hendrik. You need to be clear about that, even inside your own head, because the line matters. You sit in a cafe across from the bank for 40 minutes. You watch him come out for lunch. 41 years old, sensible coat, wedding ring. He buys a sandwich from a street vendor and eats it standing up, looking at his phone. He looks like a man who coaches youth football on weekends and argues with his wife about whether to refinance the mortgage. He looks like a man who has no idea what he found. You call your contact at the bank. 14 minutes later, you have Hendrik's full personnel file, his email history for the past 6 months, the internal query thread. Hendrik just needs a reason to stop being curious. You watch him get on his bicycle and ride home through the late afternoon canal light. That reason will arrive in the form of a promotion offer, restructured under a division that has nothing to do with compliance, with a 20% salary increase and a mandate that keeps him focused entirely on forward-looking regulatory strategy. He'll feel rewarded. He'll feel seen. He'll stop looking at the past. You text one word back to the number that messaged you this morning. Resolved. You're on a flight to Singapore by 9 p.m. Marcus Vail is 57 years old, and he has never once in the 3 years you've worked for him raised his voice. You've seen him in rooms with heads of state, with cartel-adjacent energy brokers, with men whose names appear on sanctions lists in 3 separate jurisdictions. He treats all of them the same way. Calm, precise, slightly bored. Like the conversation is a formality and the outcome was already decided somewhere upstream where no one else was looking. He trusts you in a way that is not personal. You've understood that from the beginning. It's not about you. It's about what you represent. A function, a capability, a layer of insulation between him and every consequence. You are the reason his hands stay clean. You are the reason his lawyers never have to know things they'd be legally obligated to report. You are the gap between what Marcus Vail does and what Marcus Vail can be proven to have done. Understanding that used to bother you. Now it just feels like clarity. Singapore is about something different. A sovereign wealth fund, a quiet conversation between 3 men, none of whom officially know each other, in a private dining room of a hotel that doesn't advertise its top floor. You're not in the room. You're never in the room. You're in the hallway, in your head, tracking every variable in real time through the earpiece that connects you to the one person inside who is, technically, a hospitality consultant named David Lamb, who has worked for you, not for Marcus, for you, for 2 years. The conversation goes long. That's fine. Long means negotiation. Negotiation means both sides still want something. You stand in a corridor that smells like sandalwood and money, and you think, not for the first time, about what your life looks like from the outside. From the outside, it looks like nothing. That's the architecture. 3 years of careful construction. The door opens at 11:40 p.m. The 3 men come out. No handshakes. Handshakes leave impressions. They separate into 3 different elevator banks without looking at each other. David appears at your shoulder 30 seconds later. Framework agreed, he says quietly. Numbers by Thursday. You nod. You walk to the elevator. You ride it down alone, watching your reflection in the polished brass door, and you try to remember the last time you made a decision entirely for yourself, not for Marcus. Not for the system, not to resolve something or protect something or contain something. You can't remember. The elevator opens onto the lobby. You keep walking. There are things about this life that no one tells you, because no one who lives it talks. The loneliness isn't the kind you can name or fix. It's structural. It's built into the job the way load-bearing walls are built into a building. You cannot have close friends because close friends ask questions. You cannot have relationships that outlast a few months because intimacy creates information, and information creates exposure. You cannot be known because being known is the threat. What you have instead is competence. You can read a room in 40 seconds. You can build a financial structure that would take a forensic accountant 3 years to partially understand. You can stand in a corridor in Singapore at midnight and feel nothing except the clean, cold awareness of the situation around you, all its variables and pressure points and exit vectors. You used to wonder if that was a skill or a symptom. You stopped wondering. 6 weeks later, Marcus calls you directly. He almost never calls directly. There's a journalist. he says. Good one. Berlin-based. She's been working a story for 14 months. She has a source inside the Zurich structure. You feel the particular stillness that arrives when something is genuinely serious. How far in is the source? You ask. Far enough, he says. There is a pause. You know what some people in your position would hear in that pause. I'll find the leak, you say. The journalist is not the problem. The source is the problem. Agreed, Marcus says. He hangs up. You sit with the phone in your hand for a long moment. You think about Hendrik Blom on his bicycle, riding home through the canal light. You think about the version of this that stays on the right side of the line. Your line, the one you drew early and have spent 3 years walking directly beside without crossing. You think about how close the line is getting. You find the source in 11 days. It's a woman named Carola. She's been with the Zurich structure for 4 years, and she contacted the journalist not for money, but because of something she saw 2 years ago that she was never able to unknow. You understand that, more than you expected to. You sit in a car outside her apartment building in Zurich at 7 in the morning, and you make the call that ends her access, triggers the legal mechanism that will freeze her, bind her in litigation for years, take everything she built. It's clean. It's legal. It's devastating. She will never be able to prove what she knows. Marcus will never know how long you sat in the car before you made the call. You drive away. The city is bright and cold and completely indifferent. You merge onto the motorway, and you are already thinking about the next thing, the next problem, the next resolution, because that is what you do. And that is what you are, and the machine does not pause to consider what it costs to keep running. Your phone buzzes. One message, no name, good work, Tokyo, next week. You set the phone on the seat beside you. You keep driving, and somewhere behind you, at a distance you can no longer accurately measure, the man you used to be is standing still, watching you go, not calling out, understanding finally that you are not coming back.